Hello and welcome to So Fantastic with Tiwa Avanti. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a button-down shift dress with layered puff sleeves. Without wasting any of our time, let's just get right into the tutorial. So I'm going to be using this fabric to make the dress. It's kind of like Duchess and it's stretchy, it has a bit of stretch to it. And this elastic for the sleeves, and I got these transparent buttons to sew on the dress. So let's just get right in. Okay, so I have measured out the length and the width of the dress, and this is what I'm going to be using to cut the front panel. So for the width of this fabric that I have laid here, I added 4 inches to the hip measurement. I divided that by 4, so I added 2.5 inches, and that will be the button placket allowance. So that's what I have folded over here, and like I said, I have measured out the length also. So I'd like you to note that I'll be cutting the front and the back piece panel separately. So this edge here is the folded edge, that's the center front, and this will be the side of the dress. Okay, so now I'll mark out the button placket, and that's 2.5 inches. Okay, so remember that I have added this to what I folded, so please don't forget to add allowance for the button placket, okay, so that you don't have a shortage when you finish cutting out. Because if you cut out your actual fabrics like this, if you cut out with your measurements and you have no allowance for this, so when you finish cutting, the dress is not going to size you. Okay, so remember to add that allowance. Okay, so after marking out the 2.5 inch allowance for the buttons, connect all of the points with a straight line. So next, measure the armhole depth. I am working with an armhole of 9, so I'm just going to mark that down from here. Then mark the shoulder to hip measurement. Okay, so for this project, that's about 24 inches. Now mark half of the shoulder width. So I'm working with a shoulder width of 16 rather, so I have 8 here. Half of 16 is 8. And for the neck width, mark 3 inches in and 3 inches down for the depth of the neck, and this is for the front neck line alone. Okay, so connect with your curved ruler as shown. So like I said, this is the front neck. For the back neck, just mark 1 inch down, okay, from the borderline and connect as shown. So this is your back neckline. So the next thing you want to do now is to mark 1 inch down from the shoulder point, and from that 1 inch that you marked down, connect to the neck width. So this is your shoulder slant. Okay, so this is the bust line here, and then the hip line. So now connect the shoulder slant to the bust line, and okay, so on the bust line, mark your bust measurement plus 4 divided by 4. Okay, and then you can add maybe like 1 inch for ease. You already added 4 inches to your bust measurement, but for more ease, you can also add like 1 inch sewing allowance. So on the hip line, also mark your hip measurement plus 4 divided by 4, and please remember that you are marking from the button placket line. Okay, so don't go and mark from the center front. Don't ignore that allowance you left for the buttons. Okay, so now connect from the bust all the way to the hem. Okay, so now to shape the armhole, mark half of what you have on this line. So I have 8 and half of that is 4. So on that 4 inch mark, you also go in by 0.5 inch. Okay, that's by like half an inch, and then you draw the armhole curve. So after that, go ahead to cut. But first, before I cut, I'm going to fold in the block button, the allowance for the button. I'm going to fold that in, and also I'll be cutting out the back neckline first. Okay, so please don't make the mistake of cutting the front neckline first. Okay, because this will mean that you have cut off the back neckline entirely, and then the back neckline will be too low. So that is all for the front of the dress. So moving on to the back, I want to cut the back of the dress on bias. That's why I've moved to a bigger table so that I can lay out the fabric properly. So to get the bias fold, hold one end of the fabric along the width and take it over to the other side, this way. So when you fold over, it's going to form like a triangular kind of shape at the top, and you can make the fold as wide as you want. This depends on the amount of fabric you have at your disposal. So I'm going to cut the back on bias because from the picture the back looked fuller and it has some type of drape, it's more than the front. And I'm going to also increase the length of the back to create a high-low effect. After folding on bias, just place the front panel on the back this way and make sure that the front the center front of both panels like align. Remember that you don't need any form of closure, any zip or any type of closure for the back. This is because you already have allowance for buttons in front. So now I'm going to measure the length of the dress on the back and gradually increase it to the desired length I want for the high-low effect. So I'm adding about 6 inches to the length of the dress. After marking, just blend smoothly. Okay, so here's what the hem looks like. So I'm blending it like this so that the side of the front and the back are the same when sewing. Okay, so just connect as shown, and I'll be cutting from here all the way to the side of the back panel. So now after cutting the back, put that away. Shape the front neckline. So now you can unpin the button placket and just reblend the neckline and cut it out, and also slash the middle of the front panel. So this is what the front of the dress and the back should look like, and as you can see, the back is way wider than the front. So I have gone ahead to iron the button placket allowance down, and this will make it easy for me to fold when I am sewing. But I ironed 0.5 inch in first, and then when I'm sewing, I'll just fold it over like this and sew all the way. I will do that on both sides. So when sewing, ensure that this fold here is 1 inch wide. Okay, just fold as shown and stitch. So after stitching the placket, I'll pin the front and the back shoulder together. Okay, so I'll pin the shoulders first and then pin the sides, and I'm going to sew with 1/2 inch allowance at the shoulder and also at the side. Now I've sewn the sides and the shoulder of the dress. I did this type of finishing that will not require me to weave the inside at all, so it looks really neat on the inside and also outside. And I have pressed the seams. So the next thing to do now is to cut the collar, and join that to the dress. To cut the collar, I'm going to measure round the neckline of the dress first, and I have here 20 inches. The collar is going to be 20 inches wide. So, and I'm going to cut the collar with a stay first, and then I'll use that stay to cut the main fabric. So I just put a small border here, that I'm sure that I am taking all my measurements from a straight line. So this day is already on fold. I'm going to now mark half of the measurement that I took around the neckline of the dress. Okay, and then from this point here, I'm just going to rule a line up. I just want to rule it up to make sure that, just to have a straight line there. So what I'm cutting now is the collar stand. So then on this line, okay, mark half of, I'm going to mark half of 10 again. From this point here, go up by 0.5 inches. So, and from the half an inch, just connect back to the 5-inch mark. So the collar stand is usually 1 inch. The height is always 1 inch. So just mark 1 inch up from here, and then just take 1 inch up all the way as shown. So just mark 1 inch all the way like that and connect all the points. Next, go in by 0.5 inch from this point and curve down as shown. So this is the collar stand. So for the collar itself, or the collar fall, I just call it collar fall, I'm going to measure 10 inch. Okay, that is half of the width of the neckline. And for the height, I'm going to measure 2 inches up. Some people make their collars longer. Anything longer than 2 inches is always too long for me, but that's me. You can make yours longer than 2 inches if you want. So then connect, and I'm taking here as the base of the collar. That is, I'm going to attach this part to the collar stand. So just going to shape it a little bit. Just from this point, go in by 1 inch. 1 inch is okay, 1 to 1.5 inch, but I'm going to use 1 inch here. So, and then from the 1 inch mark, connect it back to the original length of the collar, and that is all for the collar stand. So now this is the collar and the collar stand, and this is what I'm going to now iron onto the main fabric. And after that, I'm going to add ½ inch seam allowance all around the collar, the top, the sides, everywhere. And oh, please, before you cut, fold the collar, that's the collar fall, in half and mark 0.5 inch up at the midpoint and just connect back as shown. There's no rule to this, just blend it back into the collar, and so that part is going off. Okay, so I added ½ inch to the collar stand, and I did the same thing to the collar fall. I cut 2 pieces of both the collar stand and the collar fall. Okay, so now I'm going to notch the middle of, and sorry, I've sewn the collar fall off camera. I just stitched it by ½ inch all around. That's all I did. So now notch the middle of all of the collar pieces. Okay, so now I put 1 piece of the collar stand over the collar fall using the notches, the notch parts, to align them at the middle, and then flip the collar over to the other side and also put the other piece of the collar stand on that side, and join all of the pieces together. So now fold the neckline of the dress into 2 and notch the middle, and go ahead to attach the collar. Sorry, I lost the clips showing how I attached the collar to the dress, but it's pretty straightforward to do. Make sure that you sew all the pieces together neatly. Okay, so for the sleeves, I'm using this basic sleeve pattern for the dress. It's just a straight sleeve. I didn't do any round elbow or round wrist shaping. It's not necessary. The sleeve itself already is a puff sleeve, so we need volume. And the fabric I have also folded already into 4. I'm going to cut both sleeves at a go. I have folded here is the bicep measurement, that is the arm circumference times 3 divided by 2. So meaning I want the sleeve to be at least 3 times bigger than the actual armhole circumference. And I also increased the length of the sleeve by 4 or 5 inches, and this is so that when the sleeve is drawn up, it has a nice drape to it. Okay, so that it doesn't become short. Pin the basic sleeve to the pattern and just take a line from the armhole point here all the way to the hem. So this gives the sleeve like more volume. Just slightly curve the side of the sleeve to prevent it from having any sharp points when you finish cutting. And so for where I'm going to be sewing the elastic and where I'm going to gather, I marked 16 inches down from the sleeve edge and I ruled a straight line. So this line will serve as a guide when I am sewing the elastic, which is what will gather these parts together. And I'm also going to create an elastic casing that is going to be used to gather the hem of the sleeve. Okay, so before sewing the elastic, I decided to sew gathers on both sleeves. So after gathering, I'll now use the elastic to secure the gathers. Then I cut this flounce, which will be attached to the upper part of the sleeve. So the formula I used to cut the flounce is going to be displayed on the screen, and you can use this whenever you want to cut yours. Okay, so make sure to attach the elastic and flounce first before you sew up the sides of the sleeves, because it gets hard when you've already sewn the sleeve and you're trying to gather it with elastic and stuff like that. And for the placement of the flounce, I marked 5 inches down from the sleeve head. I just ruled it into the armhole. So this is where I'm going to be attaching the flounce to. So this is the sleeve after sewing, and this area has been gathered. Just sewn elastic to the gathered part on the inside. So I'm going to go ahead to pin the sleeve to the dress and join. So I've already joined one hand to the dress. Let me just sew the other one and then I'll come and show it to you. So this is how the attached collar looks also. And I just pinned down this, the point where I'm going to attach the buttons, because I have not made the buttonholes or sewn the buttons onto the dress. And this is the finished look of the shift dress after I attached the buttons and everything. Please check out this video on how to craft a dartless bodies. This type of bodies can easily adapt to a shift dress or jacket. Please check that out here. Thank you. Please subscribe and like and come back for more. I'll see you in the next one.